March 1945. American forces crossed the Rhine into Germany and immediately split their objectives. The infantry and armor push east to defeat what remains of the German military. But running ahead of them, sometimes days ahead, is a different kind of unit with a different mission entirely. They are not looking for German soldiers. They are looking for German weapons. Every prototype, every factory, every research facility, every technical document they can carry. They are called T-Force, Target Force. And the weapons they captured in the spring of 1945 quietly shaped the next 50 years of American military development in ways that have never been fully acknowledged in public. The formal intelligence operation behind T-Force was run through the Combined Intelligence Objectives Subcommittee, CIOS, a joint Anglo-American organization established specifically to exploit German technical and scientific achievements before they could be destroyed, hidden, or captured by the Soviet Union. CIOS had been operating since 1944, sending small teams into liberated territories in France, Belgium, and the Netherlands to recover whatever German technical material remained. But the real prize was always Germany itself, and by early 1945, CIOS had compiled a priority target list of over 1,500 specific facilities across Germany, ranked by strategic importance, with the highest priority targets assigned to the teams most likely to reach them first. By early 1945, CIOS had compiled priority target lists covering hundreds of facilities across Germany: weapons research centers, aircraft factories, naval facilities, optical and electronics manufacturers, chemical research laboratories. Each target had a team assigned to it. Each team knew that the window between Germany collapsing and Soviet forces arriving in any given area might be measured in days or weeks. What those teams found when they got inside German facilities exceeded even the optimistic projections intelligence analysts had prepared. Germany had been developing weapons technology across the final years of the war with an urgency driven by desperation and a willingness to pursue radical concepts that the larger, better-resourced American and British programs had considered too risky or too unconventional. Some of it was dead ends, engineering concepts that didn't work or couldn't be manufactured at scale. But a significant portion was either directly usable or pointed toward possibilities that American weapons designers had not yet seriously explored. At facilities across Germany, T-Force teams found stockpiles of captured weapons, research prototypes, and production weapons in quantities that took weeks to catalog. At Spandau, they found complete STG-44 assault rifles, the weapon many military historians consider the first true assault rifle ever fielded, combining an intermediate power cartridge, selective fire capability, and tactical versatility that would define infantry weapons for the next 8 decades. At the Krupp Works in Essen, they found artillery blueprints and gun steel specifications that represented decades of accumulated manufacturing knowledge. At various Luftwaffe research facilities, they found aerodynamic data, wind tunnel test results, and swept-wing research that was years ahead of anything American aeronautical engineers had formally committed to, results from facilities at Göttingen, Braunschweig, and Vienna that the Americans hadn't even known existed until T-Force teams walked through the doors. At weapons testing ranges, they found entire collections of prototype weapons that had never reached production, experimental anti-tank systems, guided bomb prototypes, early surface-to-air missile designs, representing thousands of engineering hours now available for American teams to study at no development cost whatsoever. The aircraft were perhaps the most immediately valuable finds. Operation Lusty, an Air Force program whose name stood for Luftwaffe's secret technology, had been recovering and evaluating captured German aircraft since the fall of France, but the collapse of Germany in spring 1945 produced a sudden flood of new examples. American pilots flew evaluation flights in Me-262 jet fighters, Focke-Wulf 190 fighters, Heinkel He-162 jet aircraft, and the extraordinary Dornier Do 335 File, a push-pull twin-engine fighter with one propeller at the nose and one at the tail, capable of 474 miles per hour on piston power alone, the fastest piston-engine aircraft Germany had produced. Each evaluation flight generated a detailed performance report filed against American equivalents that formed the basis of post-war aviation development planning. The Me-262, in particular, Germany's operational jet fighter, capable of 559 miles per hour at a time when the best American piston fighter could manage around 440, received the most intensive evaluation of any captured aircraft. American test pilots at Wright Field flew it against P-51 Mustangs and P-47 Thunderbolts in simulated combat, producing findings that the Air Force used to shape every jet fighter development program that followed. Some of the most valuable captured equipment went directly to Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, the U.S. Army's primary weapons testing facility, where German tanks, artillery pieces, small arms, and support equipment were systematically tested, disassembled, documented, and assessed. By the time the evaluation program at Aberdeen concluded, American engineers had generated thousands of pages of technical reports covering virtually every significant German weapons system of the war. Those reports did not sit in filing cabinets. They were read, argued over, and acted on. Aberdeen Proving Ground in the summer and autumn of 1945 was unlike anything the facility had seen in its 30-year history. Lined up across the test ranges were Tiger tanks, Panther tanks, Panzer IVs, various German tank destroyers, self-propelled artillery pieces, half-tracks, and armored cars. A comprehensive cross-section of Germany's wartime armored vehicle production, most of it still operational, all of it available for American engineers to run, fire, disassemble, and test to destruction if they chose. The tank evaluations produced findings that were simultaneously impressive and reassuring. The Tiger Eye's armor was as formidable as combat reports had suggested. American 76mm gun ammunition had serious difficulty penetrating the frontal plate at combat ranges, and the 88mm gun fitted to the Tiger could defeat every American tank then in service. The Panther's sloped armor design and long-barreled 75mm gun also outperformed American equivalents in several key metrics. But both vehicles were mechanically complex to a degree that American engineers considered a serious operational liability. The Tiger Eye's final drive, the mechanism transmitting engine power to the tracks, was found to be chronically underpowered for the vehicle's weight, which explained the high breakdown rate German units had reported throughout the war. A weapon system is only as good as its availability, and a Tiger that had thrown a final drive on the road to the front was a Tiger that wasn't fighting anyone. The assessment of German small arms at Aberdeen was more uniformly positive. The MG-42 machine gun, Germany's standard general-purpose machine gun, capable of firing at rates between 1,200 and 1,500 rounds per minute depending on the bolt configuration, was evaluated by American ordnance engineers as the finest machine gun design the war had produced by any nation. Its rate of fire was so high that the individual shots were indistinguishable to the human ear, producing a distinctive tearing sound that Allied soldiers universally recognized and respected. Its belt feed mechanism was simpler, more reliable, and faster to reload under combat stress than American equivalents. Its quick-change barrel system, allowing an overheated barrel to be replaced in seconds, without tools and without stopping the gun crew from immediately returning to fire, was a practical battlefield capability that American machine gun designs didn't match. The U.S. Army's post-war machine gun development program produced the M60, and the M60's belt feed mechanism was directly derived from the MG-42's design. A simplified, Americanized version of the MG-42 itself was eventually adopted by West Germany's post-war Bundeswehr as the MG-3, and it remains in service with the German military today, more than 80 years after the original design was finalized, making it one of the longest-serving machine gun designs in the history of modern warfare. The STG-44 assault rifle assessment was more complicated. American evaluators at Aberdeen tested the weapon and filed reports acknowledging its concept. An intermediate power cartridge in a selective fire rifle capable of both automatic suppression and aimed semi-automatic fire was tactically superior to the combination of bolt-action rifles and submachine guns than standard in American infantry units. The Army's response to this finding was, in the short term, to essentially ignore it. American infantry doctrine in the late 1940s continued to emphasize the M1 Garand and its successor, and the assault rifle concept was not formally incorporated into American weapons procurement until the adoption of the M16 in the 1960s, 15 years after the STG-44 had demonstrated the concept in combat. The most consequential evaluation of captured German technology happened not at Aberdeen but at Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio, where American aeronautical engineers spent 1945 and 1946 working through the accumulated aerodynamic research that T-Force teams had recovered from German facilities, 10 tons of technical documents, wind tunnel data, and engineering drawings that arrived at Wright Field in successive shipments through the summer and autumn of 1945. Germany had been conducting serious research into swept-wing aerodynamics, the design principle where wings are angled backward rather than mounted at a right angle to the fuselage, since the late 1930s, and the data recovered from facilities at Göttingen, Braunschweig, and the German Aeronautical Research Institute represented years of wind tunnel testing that American programs hadn't yet formally committed to conducting. American aeronautical engineers reviewing the German data in 1945 found that it resolved questions about high-speed wing behavior that their own research had not yet answered. That data went directly into the design revision of what became the F-86 Sabre, the American swept-wing jet fighter that entered service in 1949 and that, in the skies over Korea in 1950 and 1951, would prove itself capable of fighting the Soviet MiG-15 on roughly equal terms. Both aircraft, the American F-86 and the Soviet MiG-15, owed their swept-wing configuration to the same body of German aerodynamic research, captured and divided between Washington and Moscow in the same spring of 1945. Of the thousands of German weapons and vehicles captured by American forces and evaluated through programs at Aberdeen, Wright Field, and a dozen other facilities, only a small number were formally preserved for long-term retention. The majority were tested to destruction, stripped for parts, or eventually scrapped once their evaluation programs concluded. The cost of storing, maintaining, and protecting a fleet of captured foreign military equipment indefinitely was not something post-war defense budgets were structured to support, and the institutional memory that had assigned value to the evaluation process didn't always translate into institutional commitment to the physical objects once the reports were written. Aberdeen Proving Ground retained an outdoor static display of captured German vehicles for decades, a collection that at its peak included a Tiger I, Tiger II, Panther, Jagdtiger, and examples of nearly every other significant German armored vehicle of the war, making it one of the most significant assemblages of German wartime armor outside Europe and one that drew researchers and historians from around the world. Tiger tanks, Panther tanks, Panzer IVs, and various other vehicles sat in the Maryland weather, exposed to rain, snow, and humidity that the original designers had never intended them to endure indefinitely. The collection deteriorated steadily over decades of neglect that reflected a broader institutional ambivalence about the display's value. When the Army decided to close Aberdeen's public museum operations and transfer the collection to Fort Lee, Virginia, in 2010, some of the German vehicles were in poor enough condition that restoration rather than simple relocation was required. Aircraft fared somewhat better in terms of preservation, partly because the aircraft museum community, both military and civilian, developed earlier and more consistently than armored vehicle preservation. Several Me-262 airframes were brought to the United States during the evaluation program, and enough survived the post-war decades through various museum transfers to make the Me-262 one of the more represented surviving German aircraft types today. The National Air and Space Museum Stephen F. Udvarhazy Center near Washington holds an Me-262, as well as the sole surviving Dornier Do 335 file, the remarkable push-pull twin-engine fighter that was the fastest piston-engine aircraft Germany produced, captured intact at war's end and never publicly displayed in full operational condition during Germany's own wartime use. German small arms captured during the war ended up scattered across a wide range of repositories. The War Department had issued regulations governing the retention of enemy weapons as trophies. Soldiers were technically required to have a captured weapon inspected and officially registered before bringing it home, but the practical enforcement of those regulations during the chaotic demobilization of 1945 and 1946 was minimal. Hundreds of thousands of German pistols, rifles, and submachine guns made their way into American private ownership in the years following the war, carried home by returning servicemen alongside other personal souvenirs. Walther P-38 pistols, Luger P-08S, and P-40 submachine guns, and STG-44 rifles in various states of completeness entered the American collector market through this route and never left it. German military weapons that entered private collections in 1945 and 1946 occasionally surface at American firearms auctions today, identified by their acceptance stamps and serial number sequences, sometimes in remarkably original condition and representing the only physical trace of a weapons system that the official evaluation and disposal programs reduced to reports and scrap. The legacy of what America captured in 1945 is most visible not in museum collections but in the weapons that followed. The M60 machine gun's feed mechanism traces to the MG-42. The F-86 Sabre's swept wing traces to German aerodynamic research. The tactical concept that eventually produced the M16 traces to the STG-44. Night vision technology that German engineers had been developing for tank crews and infantry units in the war's final years fed into American night vision research programs that produced equipment deployed in Vietnam and every subsequent conflict. Infrared seeker technology evaluated from captured German air-to-air missile prototypes contributed to the development of the AIM-9 Sidewinder, the heat-seeking missile that became the standard short-range air combat weapon of the Cold War. The men who ran T-Force ahead of the American advance in March and April 1945 were looking for intelligence advantages, specific technical data that could shorten development timelines and close capability gaps against whatever threat came next. What they actually captured was broader than that, an entire engineering tradition, built under wartime pressure, that had pursued radical solutions to problems American designers had approached more conservatively. Not all of it was useful. Some of it was impressive but impractical. A significant portion of it was directly applied. The German weapons that American forces captured in 1945 didn't go back to Germany. They went into American labs, American test ranges, and eventually, in modified and Americanized forms, into American hands, where their influence is still visible in military equipment being used today.